I'm Jay Edidin.
And I'm Miles Stokes.
And we're the hosts of Jay and Miles Explain the X-Men, a weekly podcast all about the ins, the outs, and the retcons of comics' greatest superhero soap opera.
We're also the hosts of Jay and Miles Review the X-Men,
which you're watching right now,
where we talk about the X books that come out each week.
This week we've got the books of February 1st, 2017, and we are recording again at Castle Sexy Dracula instead of Books with Pictures because they are celebrating Image Day, which is awesome and we are in favor of, but is not quite relevant to the content of this video review.
Indeed it is not. Brief publisher-related complaint that is not Image, but in this case is Marvel. So we used to buy physical issues, and they come with a little, digital code thing for the issue you bought, and you entered that onto a website, and then you had a digital copy, and that was great, because
especially if two people are both reviewing and reading the same things, and especially, part of the same functional unit.
Right. And they stopped doing that as of February, and that's sad, because now we have to choose between, supporting a local business and just buying digital comics, and that's unfortunate. It looks like what Marvel's doing now is they're offering digital copies of the first issues of trade paperbacks they want to promote. Supposedly that's supposed to be good for retailers, but I certainly haven't talked to any retailers who are excited about that concept. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, it's all subjective. I don't want to generalize to the entire industry based on the experiences of me and those around me. But still, I'm sad because I like the way it worked before, and now it's different, and I guess I'm getting old, and it was just better before. Humph. That said, we did like this week's comics that Marvel published. So
do you want to actually talk about them?
I could really just complain about the digital thing all day, but we had some good issues, so sure, let's talk about those. We'll start with All New X-Men number 1.mu, written by Jeremy Whiteley, with pencils by Carlo Barberi and Ron Lim, inks by Walden Wong and Terry Pallett, and colors by Chris Peter.
Wait, 1.mu?
Yeah, I don't know how you're supposed to say that. Monsters Unleashed? Number 1, Monsters Unleashed? Well, anyway, what this is it's a one-shot that ties into the current Monsters Unleashed miniseries, which apparently just got promoted into an ongoing before it even came out, which I guess that's gutsy on Marvel's part.
The direct market, man.
It's weird. Cullen Bunn's writing it, so that's cool. He does good stuff. So yeah, what this is a standalone one-shot. You don't really need to be familiar at all with the event other than to know that there are giant monsters and they're attacking people, and that's it.
I don't even know that you need to be all that familiar with the premise of the book, even.
But what we have here that was most exciting to me is a take on characters I really love by a very different creative team. We're so used to Hopeless and Bagley doing these characters, and now we have a completely different group of people. And I gotta say, the characters are a little bit off-model personality-wise, they're a little bit off-model art-wise, but that's fine. It's a really interesting, fascinating take on sides of them that we don't normally see.
It also gave me something that I have been missing ever since I finished Marjorie Liu's run of X-23, which is Laura Kinney running around with Gambit, which basically puts Gambit into my favorite version of Gambit, which is awesome, as opposed to creepy. And this gives us that, and it's delightful, it's fun, it's frolicsome. If I have a single quibble with it, it's that the characters who aren't front and center feel very, very flat to me. It feels like they've got one trait each, and they're kind of just that.
Well, okay, I hear what you're saying, and you're not wrong, but my take is this is a story about Wolverine, and to a lesser extent, Gambit. It's about their relationship, specifically. Also a giant crayfish, it's about that too. But the other characters, I feel like when you have characters that are very much in the background, just having them do hey, here's Beast, drumming with his feet because he loves jazz and stuff like that, I'm okay with that. It wasn't supposed to be about them. It was supposed to be about Laura, Remy, and a giant crayfish.
I mean, yes, but on the other hand, I think there are ways to have characters in the background and just have glimpses of them that imply more complexity and imply, a larger background and scene. And I think, honestly, a lot of the ensemble casts that have one character front and center do that. And that tends to be a standby of the versions of those that I like best. So that's my quibble. I really enjoyed the A-plot, so...
Yeah. Well, and what I enjoyed specifically is it's not just, Laura and Remy are hanging out again. Is it interesting, by the way? I should re-say, it is interesting, by the way.
Is it?
That it is.
Are you sure?
That we have this happening
the cat's
at the same time.
trying to help.
Hey, this is Bella.
They've seen her.
It's true.
She's yesterday's news.
It's good to have a reminder. But anyway...
She won't stop squawking until you pet her.
I'll pet her then. That's fine.
Okay.
So we have this story with Remy and Laura here. At the same time, in All New Wolverine, Gambit just showed up too. So I don't know if the powers that be just heard the fact that I read X-23 recently and am in love with that friendship. But apparently they're going to give us lots of it, and that's pretty great. So anyway, what I was saying before that side and interruption is that what I like is it's not just another scene of, hey, here's Remy and Laura hanging out. it's very much the evolution of their dynamic. It's very
and
much...
also it's a scene of, hey, here's Remy and Laura fighting giant monsters in a freaking swamp.
Pretty great, yeah.
So...
including Dr. Chimera, who's only there briefly, but he's a really fun, like, I would say mustache twirling, but doesn't have a mustache. He's got horns. I guess he can't twirl those.
He has a mustache all over his entire body.
That's true, he's furry. But no, I mean, we have Gambit basically reacting to the fact that Laura has kind of grown up to a degree. She's not the same severely damaged, trying to find her way teenager that she was when they first started hanging out.
She's not only grown up, but she's embraced an aspect of superhero identity that he never really has, and has grown past him in some ways. And yeah, it's a really fun, really good take on that dynamic. If those are characters you like, or if you like beating up alligator stories.
And crayfish.
Yeah, this is a good one. Again, it stands alone very well. I don't think you need a lot of context just because the background characters don't really matter much and the foreground characters are catching up after a long time apart. But yeah, it's a strong read, strong art. I think the art is really solid. It didn't really particularly jump out at me, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah, although Angel and Bobby looked very, very similar.
They did. They are falling into the old X Factor Scott and Bobby trap.
Oh, where you couldn't tell who was who unless you saw the visor.
Right, because Bobby's been being drawn as blonder, and yeah, these days.
Yeah, but again, there are quibbles. These are all minor quibbles. This is a very, very solid issue, and for a tie-in to an event that's unrelated to the main book, I tend not to expect that. So well done, assorted members of the creative team.
I think Iceman just needs to get like a facial tattoo or a piercing or something.
Perfect.
Could be
all right,
subtle.
Mark Bagley, you're on the book for a little bit longer. Do it now.
Next up is the proper All New X-Men issue, All New X-Men number 18, written by Dennis Hopeless with pencils by Mark Bagley, inks by Andrew Hennessy, and colors by Nolan Woodard. So, good issue.
Good issue. Very good. Good Cyclops issue.
Yeah, again, I feel like I don't entirely trust my own judgment on this one objectively because obviously character feelings, but also because I really love the way Dennis Hopeless writes Cyclops, and especially the way he writes Cyclops' captions, inner monologue, etc. Yeah,
totally. Well, as somebody who is not quite as fixated on Cyclops as you, but still enjoys the character, I can confirm very good Cyclops issue.
Yeah, the pacing was a little bit iffy. I thought the ending fell kind of flat. Because, like, I felt
really,
like...
I love the ending.
I liked the ending, but I felt like there should have been a stronger... The catastrophic ending beat felt a little bit flat.
Okay, I disagree. Okay.
Bagley, for me, is a standout here. We get to see him do a lot of teenagers and a lot of fairly straightforward fight scenes and a lot of feelings. We rarely get to see him do a weird, twisty mindscape and play in that space, and he does it really, really well here. Woodard also, I think, backs that up well. But yeah, it's a good issue. It's a really strong Cyclops issue. If you have been, missing Cyclops as the focus of things, although it's, not grown-up Cyclops, so take what you can
He's
get.
slightly dead these days.
It's a little bit, yeah. Comics.
And these days, for the moment.
Yeah, these days. But this is really good.
Yeah, it's also, I wasn't expecting an Avengers or Inhumans versus X-Men tie-in to be so significant plot-wise. Like, again, we won't go into the specifics, but the revelation that Scott has in this issue, this could change everything. And honestly, I think this could very easily lead into X-Men Blue, into some of the plot developments we've heard that book will be exploring.
Interesting. That's a really good point.
Yeah, so I'm excited. Like, this makes me excited for this issue itself because it's very good. It's a good tie-in issue. It's a good Cyclops character focus. But it also makes me super psyched about Resurrection. It's
also a really good look at points of divergence, if that makes sense. What made adult Cyclops, what you have to give to a teenager in terms of idealism. Although I guess the level of idealism is kind of concurrent. But yeah, it's interesting to watch, and one of the interesting parts about it too is that we've seen with almost all of the other characters story arcs based around them giving into some degree of inevitability, becoming their future selves or different versions of their future selves. And we explored that a little bit with Cyclops in the early arcs of this title, but we haven't really seen it pan out the way it has with, say, Beast or Angel.
Right, yeah. Not to that same, like, literally transformative degree.
And I'm interested in seeing where this is going.
Finally, we have Old Man Logan number 17, written by Jeff Lemire with art by Andrea Sorrentino and colors by Marcello Maiolo. And so this is the second part, right, of the Brood / Back in the Wasteland story. And I gotta say, I think this is shaping up to be my favorite Old Man Logan storyline so far.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying the hell out of this.
Likewise. I mean, I did like the giant monsters and Dracula's thing.
That was fun.
That was fun, but this is really good. This is Lemire and Sorrentino doing their version of the Brood Saga in a lot of ways. And it's not like, you know, I don't want to compare it directly to the Brood Saga because I'm going in circles, because what strikes me as similar is not so much the specific content or the tone, but the creative alchemy. Yeah. They're not Chris Claremont and Paul Smith, but they're clicking to a similar degree with similar narrative implications. If you'll recall, the Brood Saga was really the point where Claremont got his narrative voice. It was the first place where you saw first-person narration in an X book. And for me, at least, like, it was where Wolverine kind of took shape in ways that he hadn't before. And with this, obviously, we've had first-person narration throughout this title, but this is different. This is a tonal shift, and this feels like the creative team has leveled up, and also just like they're working together seamlessly in ways that we haven't seen before.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not as familiar with Sorrentino, but I've read a lot of Jeff Lemire, and his writing, overall I like it a great deal, but how well it works can vary greatly depending on what book it is, and often depending on what artist he's working with, or if he's just, drawing himself, because he's an artist too.
That's true of every writer to some extent, but I think Lemire is one for whom it is particularly the case.
Yeah, so it's interesting that Extraordinary X-Men I can run so hot and cold on, but Old Man Logan I have loved almost every single issue, and a lot of that is just Sorrentino and Lemire are just, they work together perfectly.
Well, they click together perfectly. I think that they also amplify each other's problems to some extent, and that's something that's dogged this book before. But here there's not another team who could tackle it as well. It's this arc is fantastic. If you're not following it, I'd highly recommend it. And it also serializes really well.
Yeah, not all of them do. Like The Last Ronin did not.
Not all monthly comics do. People tend to write to story arcs and write to the trade. And reading installments of this a month apart works really well for me.
Well, and I think part of that is that not only is it horror, because it's definitely horror.
It's horror.
But it's horror that specifically relies on disorienting the reader while it disorients the characters. And so having that anticipation building up to what the hell's going to happen next, as Logan tries to figure out just what's going on, as Puck tries to tell him something.
Assuming it's Puck.
Right, because, as far as what's perception and what's reality, that's quite unclear at this point. And although I certainly have my theories.
The unreliability of every narrative within it is, it's played well. And I mean, if you've read the Brood Saga, you will have your theories about this, but genuinely, we don't know if ours are right.
Right. One of the things I love is there's a big last page dramatic reveal of what's really going on, but is it? Or is it just a fake out? Like, who knows? And so I'm excited. I'm excited to see what happens next. I'm excited to have the privilege to have to wait to see what happens next, to let that stew in my brain for a little bit.
So that's 3 out of 3. Miles, what's our pick of the week?
This was really hard because I loved all 3 issues this week.
Yeah, they're 3 very strong comics.
Yeah, but I think if it comes down to it, we're going to have to go with All New X-Men #1.mu Monsters Unleashed, however you're supposed to say it. I don't think its title is the best of the week because it's very confusing. But yeah, it's a really fun look at a character pairing that can work extremely well when it's done well, and it is done well. It's a lot of fun monster fights, but mostly it's a cool evolution of the dynamic between 2 characters that it's easy to gloss over. What about our panel of the week?
Our panel of the week is a page, and it's the first page of Old Man Logan number 17. We mentioned disorientation and the sort of odd shape of the narrative, and it's rare to see a page that itself so well echoes the structure and feel of the entire story that it's part of. This accomplishes everything that an opening page should do in terms of interest and in terms of curiosity, and in context of this specific issue, in terms of the deep disorientation of both the character and the reader.
That's it for this week. Thanks for watching.
If you like what you've seen here but think it would be way better without our faces, check out the podcast, Jay and Miles Explain the X-Men. New episodes go up every Sunday at explainthexmen.com, also on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play. What have we got for them this week, Miles?
This week we have for them Gambit. That's right, we are finally at Gambit's first appearance, and after some aimless wandering in Uncanny X-Men for a while, well, we have more aimless wandering, but it's really fun aimless wandering.
It's kind of directed wandering.
Yeah, well...
It gets direction eventually.
It does, and I gotta say, when Gambit first shows up, he's kind of awesome from the start. Like, some of the best Gambit work is right when he first appears.
That podcast, these video reviews, and everything to explain the X-Men are brought to you by our Patreon subscribers. We are an entirely listener-supported project. Those are the folks who help us stay on the air and entirely ad-free. If you'd like to join their ranks, you can do that at the link either above or below this video, depending on where you're watching it.
In the meantime, we will see you next time, possibly with less Gambit in both the podcast and the video reviews, but personally, as someone who's enjoying him more than I have in a very long time, I hope not. More Gambit.
Yeah, and we're going to be at Emerald City Comic Con.
Oh, yes.
And you should come see us, and there's a live show, and there's a panel, and we'll have the information up on the website, and we'll also be going on about it in the podcast.
See you there.
No, he could just get, like, an eye, like Mr. Terrific.
Oh, like the letter I?
Yeah.
See, I would do it a little bit differently. I'd have on his cheeks, it could just say Ice Man.
He could shave it into the side of his head like Vanilla Ice.
Oh, man, Vanilla Ice Man? Vanilla Ice Man?
I'm sure somebody's done that before.